Welcome to the Registered Investment Advisor Podcast, where financial services marketing expert Seth Green interviews experts, executives, and top producers to share can't-miss tips on how they successfully manage their financial service firms, grow their businesses, create great relationships, and influence the industry. And now, here's your host, Seth Green.
Welcome to the podcast. This is your host, Seth Green. Today, I've got the good fortune to be joined by Paul McManus. Paul, thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. Let's go back in time a little bit. How'd you get started in the business?
So in 2015, I launched my company called More Clients, More Fun. And it was based around, at that time, helping coaches and consultants use LinkedIn to grow their practice. And fast forward to 2016, and my first financial advisor client, I like to say that he found me. That was transformational for me because he credits me with helping him go from roughly $200,000 of target premium to over a couple $1 million of target premium in the course of a couple of years. And so that was it was a very successful transformation, to say the least, which of course caught the eyes of his life insurance carrier, producer group, et cetera, is also eye-opening for me because it showed me that my ideal market, the people that I could best help, were financial professionals, broadly speaking. So since 2016, I've been working exclusively with financial professionals. That includes advisors, life insurance producers, wealth managers, tax attorneys, CPAs, you name it. And during the whole time, I've been helping them use LinkedIn to grow their financial practice. But a couple of years ago, about 2 years ago, I launched my own boutique publishing company. And so now, before we take on any clients into our LinkedIn program, we always start with helping them first and foremost publish a book. And that becomes the basis for everything that we do with them going forward.
Well, that was a whole lot, and the longer version of that could probably be in your book somewhere. If it isn't already, we're gonna unpack all of that. So we all want more clients and more fun. And obviously, we have you on this show because you're specialized in working with financial services professionals, which is our audience. So talk a little bit about we're big believers in the book is the ultimate business card, and the book is the ultimate lead magnet. What is your philosophy in terms of, you've retooled your business to start with the book? Tell me why and what kind of book you're talking about.
Yeah, so great question. So I retooled the business because during the 8 years I've been using primarily LinkedIn, first and foremost, as a lead generation, appointment setting platform. I've worked with close to 500 financial professionals. And of course, there's been many success stories. There's been some, middle of the road, some not so great, so you can imagine a range of results. But at the end of the day, what I discovered in doing that was that getting people leads and even appointments is pretty straightforward. But it really depends, their success, especially online, in moving someone from an appointment into becoming a new client. I was startled by, I want to say, the poor close rate that I saw many financial professionals have. When I started doing this, my assumption was if I get them an appointment, they're skilled salespeople, they can take care of the rest. And that was a very incorrect assumption to have. Now, to be fair to them, I think in their own context of what they're used to, especially, they probably have a much higher close rate. But for many of the people that I worked with historically and over time, doing online marketing and then by extension, doing sales online through Zoom or the phone, for many people, especially before the pandemic, was a relatively new thing to do. And so there's definitely a learning curve there, skills that need to be developed. But at the end of the day, what I realized was that we were rushing people to get an appointment, but the prospect that they were talking to did not know enough, about them. We always set up the appointments and with the idea being that it's about services, right? So I'm definitely not a believer in doing what I would call bait and switch and saying, hey, let's get to know each other. But really, I just want to sell you something. So I've never taken that approach because I think that that's dishonest. And I think it's also can be a huge waste of time. And so the appointments that we help people set up is always based around the idea of reducing taxes, increasing income, eliminating debt, things of that nature. And at the same time, people are curious and they're open and they're willing to schedule, say, a 15-minute appointment. But at the end of the day, they don't know who the advisor is, for the most part. This is a complete stranger. And so you have to be exceptionally good at sales to be able to move that person from that point onward. And at the same time, even for those people that were good at sales and are good at sales, I was shocked by how long that sales cycle was. My sales cycle is one call, maybe two. If we're getting into two calls, that's a long sales cycle for me. And so I was astonished by not just the poor close rate, but how long it took for people to successfully close new business. And so that got me to really rethink the whole approach, what's working, what's not working. For a little bit, I did a podcasting as a done for you business, but and you can probably expand and relate to this and expand upon it. What I found is that many advisors don't necessarily want to be the host of a podcast and make it all about the other person. They typically want to talk about their stuff, which I get. I'm the same way, which is why I like guest podcasting. But a book fundamentally is easier in the sense that you spend 6 weeks with us. We take you from non-author to author, and suddenly you have a piece of marketing collateral that is transformative that you don't have to continually build, but you can use it and leverage it for years to come.
Absolutely. 100%. You are correct. That would be static content that they don't have to keep changing and keep redoing every single week. Now, talk about how you're using that in combination with your LinkedIn efforts. I mean, by kind of adding that to the front end of the process, you put your previous awesome results on steroids. So talk a little bit about how that works.
Yeah. I think advisors and probably just people, professionals generally, they have a kind of a scattered approach to marketing. One of the things for advisors specifically, and what I've noticed is that oftentimes they have maybe an FMO or something of that nature and says, hey, we want to promote this and here's a cool brochure and you want to go out there and, tell everyone about this, new thing. And it's really, no one wants to get sold to. And so what I love about the book strategy is that it doubles really as a strategic marketing approach. We take people through a 6 to 12 week process to help them write their books, but we also learn a lot about their business and we help them clarify their overall target audience, what they're really good at, and what their target audience would be attracted to coming in the door for, which then lends itself to allowing us to be that much more effective in helping them guide them on LinkedIn. So, for example, all of our messaging that we do on LinkedIn, it's all tied back to the book. And so we leverage every type of LinkedIn that you can to be effective. We can get into it if you want, but it all ties back to the book. One of the things I'll actually bring up, I was actually listening to a different one of your podcasts just in preparing for this, and I kind of agree and I kind of disagree with the point. And I won't mention who it was or the name, but it was you were talking something about LinkedIn, and the idea was that no one likes to be sold to. Agree with, but at the same time, the conversation went into, or your guest was talking about, you really need to have a personal, custom approach and build relationships. And I get that theoretically, and at the same time, no one has time to build personal relationships with an unlimited number of people on a friend basis, so to speak, that are not demonstrating interest in your services. Or at least that's not the business that I want to have. And so, back to it, I see so many advisors, they're like, oh, I'm successful. I have no time. I have no life. I'm just like, crazy busy. And so what I love about the book as a starting point, and then all the different tools that you can, further do it, whether it's, podcasting or what have you, newsletters, blogging, etc. It's all couched and strategized from the book as a starting point. But at the end of the day, well, no one likes to get sold to. People are curious and you can draw them in. And so if you do your marketing right and your targeting right, and you have a message that essentially says, I just published a book and it's geared towards people specifically like you, and we help people specifically like you overcome one of their biggest challenges. Can I send you a complimentary copy? Okay, well, now you're not selling me. Now you're enticing me. Now I want to know a little bit more about that. And of course, part of our process is an exchange essentially we take them to a landing page, they opt in, we deliver the book in a number of formats. It could be physical, it could be a flip book, it could be an audio book. But now we're attracting them to us and they're demonstrating interest in our services. We're not necessarily saying, I want to even get on the phone with you right away, but we're giving them educational content. We're following up through a well-crafted drip campaign that leads them down the path so that when they're ready, they reach out, they schedule, et cetera. But the key fundamental difference to the approach, which I'm sure that you probably agree with and can relate to, is that by the time that person schedules the call, they're pre-educated, they know enough about you, and so now they can make a decision pretty quickly about moving forward. But during that, typically at that process where they schedule, you don't know who they are. I mean, your marketing machine has been doing this for you. They've, you have a well thought out marketing machine that does all of this for you. By the time you actually put in your one-to-one time, which is valuable and scarce, the person knows enough about you and they can make and they can move quickly. And they're already willing to trust you, which is completely different from the approach of, hey, just, build relationships, which assumes that you have an unlimited quantity of time, energy, etc., which is not the case.
Absolutely. Can you give an example of a target market, the way the book would be crafted for them, and then kind of how that follow-up, works? Because obviously we're going to have some advisors who are going to listen to this and go, well, LinkedIn's business to business. So I don't get, when doctors aren't on LinkedIn or whatever, how is this going to work for them? So I know you've got shoeboxes filled with 500 whatever testimonials, but if you give us one example.
Yeah. So it always starts with identifying who you're going after. And of course, if you want to use LinkedIn to go after them, you have to first realize, okay, are they on LinkedIn? So, as you alluded to, doctors are not really on LinkedIn, or at least they're not very active, not the best target market. I'll give you an interesting example of one of my clients I've been working with for about 2 or 3 years now. His name's Mark, and he's the CEO of Hilton Tax and Wealth. And yes, that's the same Hilton family whose hotels that many of us have stayed at. And he was using LinkedIn prior to us working together. He was using LinkedIn the traditional way, which was just send messages, try to schedule appointments. And we started, of course, with writing his book. And the book title clarified, okay, who are we going after? And the book title is The Tax-Free Business Owner. How business owners can, I might be butchering this, but how business owners can legally pay zero taxes. Now, I'm just thinking for a second, if I was on the recipient of that as a business owner myself, with taxes being a pain point, and someone came out to me and said, the tax-free business owner, how business owners can legally pay zero taxes. Okay, I need to know a little bit more about that, right? And so, that was the book that we framed. And the book itself is roughly 12,000 words. We can deliver it in any number of formats, but that's the entry point to taking them essentially off of LinkedIn into email and then eventually on a schedule. A couple things there. Before that, I was always a little bit hesitant to recommend business owners as a target market because it was fairly broad.
Generic, yeah.
You can imagine that. But this use case surprised me. And I think it's because the promise of the book was so compelling that we're able to, attract people left and right. But we do have a qualifier in there, and we say it very clearly on the, different marketing, which that this is for business owners that have at least $500,000 of revenue and are currently paying at least $20,000 or more in taxes. And so that essentially excludes anyone that doesn't fit that. And so we've been doing this for a couple of years now to great success, consistent appointments. And a couple of the points that he'll make, and that he's told me through videos and testimonials and whatnot, is that when someone reads the book, and this is why it's called the short book formula, but when someone reads the book and they're qualified, he closes them within 2 calls at 80%. And that's fundamentally different from most people's experience.
100%. 80% is a phenomenal close rate. And the positioning and the lead generation process is completely different, where now the prospect is seeking out the advisor. the prospect, the positioning, the authority is different. It's not the advisor chasing the other way around.
100%.
So I absolutely love what you've built. You know, I mean, when we last spoke a year ago, I was a fan and you made it even better. For our advisors who are listening, where is the best place for them to go to learn more about you and your process?
Yeah, thank you. But easiest way is to go to my website. It's moreclientsmorefun.com. And from there, you can optionally get a free copy of my audiobook. And when it makes sense, you can schedule a call with me and we can discuss how we might be able to help.
Awesome. Well, we greatly appreciate your time. Again, we know it's incredibly valuable. This has been Seth Green with Paul McManus from More Clients, More Fun. Thank you all for watching or listening. We will talk to you or see you next time.
All right. Thank you.